Professor Alan Miller sat alone in his office at the University of Colorado. Books and papers covered every surface. Strange symbols filled the screens of his 3 computers. The air smelled like old coffee, and Dust. Allen was 52 years. Old with gray hair that needed a cut. His blue eyes were tired from looking at ancient texts all day. He had spent his whole life studying languages, but the symbols on his screen were different from any human language. They came from space. 20 years ago, humans had met aliens for the first time. Now Earth was part of a group called the Galactic Confederation. Most people were excited about the new technology and trade. Most language experts focused on learning the common space languages for business and politics. But Alan was different. He didn't care about the popular alien languages that everyone was learning. He was interested in the dead ones, languages no one spoke anymore, languages with no one left to teach them. Professor Miller? A voice called from the doorway. Alan looked up to see Lisa Warren, his best student. She was 24 with short, brown hair and bright eyes full of curiosity. She carried a metal box under her arm. "Come in, Lisa," Alan said, waving her toward the only chair that wasn't covered in books. Lisa put the box on his desk. "I picked this up from Dr. Garcia like you asked. He said it's from the abandoned ship they found near Saturn last month." Alan's eyes lit up. He opened the box carefully. Inside was a flat, gray object about the size of a dinner plate. Strange marks covered its surface, the same marks that filled Alan's computer screens. "Perfect timing," Alan said. "I've been translating these symbols for 3 years now. I think I'm close to understanding how they sound." Lisa leaned forward. "You mean you can read it?" "What does it say?" Alan shook his head. "Not exactly. I don't know what the words mean yet, but I think I know how to pronounce them. See this pattern here?" He pointed to a series of curved lines. "It appears over and over in the texts. I believe it's a greeting or a command." "Can you say it?" Lisa asked. Alan hesitated. "Well, these aren't human sounds. My pronunciation might be way off. But based on my research, it should sound something like..." He took a deep breath and made a series of clicks, hums, and sharp sounds. The moment the last sound left his mouth, the gray object began to glow with soft blue light. A thin beam shot up from its center, creating a floating image of the same symbols Alan had just spoken. Lisa jumped back. "What did you do?" "Nothing. I just said the words," Alan said, staring at the glowing object. "It must be some kind of activation phrase." The light pulsed brighter. The object rose an inch off the desk and began to spin slowly. "Should we call security?" Lisa asked, backing toward the door. Alan shook his head. "No, I don't think it's dangerous. It's responding to the language." "This is incredible." He leaned closer to the spinning disk. "It must be some kind of recording device or data storage." What Alan didn't know was that the object wasn't just storing data. It was sending it. The sounds he had spoken were indeed a command that was now traveling through space at speeds beyond human understanding. The signal passed through the solar system in seconds. It crossed the nearest star systems in minutes. It continued outward, following ancient pathways built into the fabric of space itself, until it reached places no human had ever seen. In the darkness between distant stars, something was waiting. Something that had been waiting for thousands of years. A massive shape floated silently in the void. It was a ship larger than any human vessel, covered in the same symbols found on Alan's disk. For ages it had drifted, systems shut down, crew in deep sleep. But now, deep within the giant ship, lights began to flicker. Ancient computers awoke. The signal had arrived. The ship's systems began powering up one by one. Ice that had formed on its hull cracked and fell away into space. Inside, Cryo chambers hissed open. Tall figures with crystalline skin and 6 limbs opened their eyes for the first time in millennia. The ship's commander, a being named Vexthar, moved stiffly to the control room. His kind, the Vekthar, had once ruled 1/3 of the galaxy. They had been warriors, conquerors, builders of wonders and terrors. Then they had disappeared from history, retreating into hibernation, waiting for a sign. The sign had come. Vexthar's voice was rough from long disuse. "The voice of awakening has spoken," he said to his crew. "The prophecy is fulfilled. Begin." The revival protocol. All across the abandoned regions of space, other Vekthar ships were waking up. Entire fleets that had been hidden in gas clouds, buried on dead moons, or drifting between stars were coming back to life. An armada was forming, the most powerful military force the galaxy had ever known. And it was all happening because Alan Miller had spoken a few words in his cluttered office. Back on Earth, Alan and Lisa watched as the disk continued to spin and glow. "I should document this," Lisa said, pulling out her phone to record the strange object. Alan nodded, his mind racing with possibilities. This could change everything we know about the extinct species from the Orion Arm. If we can communicate with their technology, imagine what we might learn. The disk suddenly stopped spinning. The blue light faded. The object settled back onto the desk, looking ordinary once more. "What happened?" Lisa asked. "Did it run out of power?" Alan picked up the disk carefully. "I don't think so. I think it finished its task." "What task?" "I don't know," Alan admitted. "But I intend to find out." For the next week, Alan and Lisa worked non-stop trying to get the disk to activate again. Nothing worked. Alan spoke the same phrases over and over, but the object remained silent. He began to wonder if he had imagined the whole thing. Then the news reports started coming in. Unknown ships had been spotted at the edge of the solar system. Large ships moving fast toward Earth. The Galactic Confederation representatives couldn't identify them. They matched no known design. Alan was in his office watching the news when Lisa burst through the door. "Professor, the symbols on those ships, they're the same as our disk." Alan stared at the blurry images on his screen. The massive vessels were covered in the familiar curved lines and sharp angles he had been studying for years. His heart raced as understanding dawned on him. "It wasn't a recording device," he whispered. "It was a beacon. When I spoke those words, I sent a signal." "A signal to who?" Lisa asked, her voice shaking. Alan looked at the disk sitting innocently on his desk, then back at the images of the approaching fleet. "I think we're about to find out," he said. The world changed in 3 days. Alan Miller sat in a small room aboard the United Nations ship called Northern Star. The walls were plain metal. The chairs were uncomfortable. Through a small window, he could see Earth growing smaller as they moved toward the alien fleet. "Professor Miller, please go over it one more time," said Admiral Samantha Foster. She was tall with short gray hair and a face that rarely smiled. Her blue uniform had many medals. "What exactly did you say to activate the disk?" Alan sighed. He had explained this 10 times already. "I don't know what the words mean. I only figured out how they might sound based on pattern analysis." Lisa Warren sat next to him. She hadn't left his side since they were brought to the ship. Professor Miller wasn't trying to signal anyone. "This is a misunderstanding." Admiral Foster frowned. "Misunderstanding or not, we have 7 massive alien ships heading straight for Earth. Ships that no one in the Galactic Confederation has seen before. Ships that started moving right after you spoke to that device." The door opened. A man in a black suit entered. "We're ready for docking," he said. Alan looked out the window again. One of the alien ships filled the view now. It was huge, at least 5 miles long. The surface was dark gray, with blue lights running along its sides. Strange symbols covered the hull, the same symbols Alan had been studying. "Remember," Admiral Foster said to Alan and Lisa, "let our diplomats do the talking. Don't speak unless spoken to." The Northern Star shook slightly as it connected to the alien vessel. Alan's heart beat fast in his chest. He had spent his life studying dead languages, not meeting the beings who spoke them. A group of 20 people walked through the docking tunnel. Admiral Foster, Alan, Lisa, diplomats, soldiers, and scientists. They entered a large room with high ceilings and blue lights. The air smelled clean but strange, like nothing on Earth. They waited in silence for 5 minutes. Then a door opened on the far side of the room. The aliens were tall, about 7 feet high. Their skin looked like crystal, catching the light and breaking it into colors. Each had 6 arms and walked on 2 legs. Their heads had no hair, and their eyes were large and dark. 5 aliens entered the room. 4 carried strange objects that might have been weapons. The 5th walked ahead of the others. This one wore a covering made of shining material over its crystal body. The humans stood still, waiting. The lead alien looked at each person carefully. Then its gaze stopped on Alan. The alien made a sound, clicks and humming noises. Alan recognized it immediately. It was saying the same words he had spoken to activate the disc. Without thinking, Alan replied with the same sounds. The effect was immediate. All 5 aliens dropped to their knees, bowing low before Alan. "What just happened?" Admiral Foster whispered. The lead alien spoke again, but this time in broken English. "The voice of awakening returns. The cycle is complete. We have waited as was foretold." The alien looked up at Alan. "I am Vexthar, first commander of the Vecthar Dominion. Our fleet, our worlds, our people await your command. Voice of awakening." A diplomat stepped forward. "We represent Earth and the Galactic Confederation." Vexthar ignored him completely, still looking only at Alan. "The Great Sleep is ended. The Armada rises again. What are your orders, voice?" Alan swallowed hard. "I think there's been a mistake. I'm not who you think I am. I'm just a professor who studies languages." Vexthar tilted his crystal head. "There is no mistake. You speak the sacred tongue. Only the voice can speak these words. It was written in the final command when we entered the Great Sleep 8,000 years ago." Lisa whispered to Alan, "They think you're some kind of prophesied leader. 8,000 years?" One of the scientists said, "Your species has been dormant for 8,000 years?" Vexthar finally looked at the other humans. "We waited as commanded. The voice told us to sleep until he returned to lead us again. Now he has called, and we have answered." Admiral Foster pulled Alan aside. "Professor, this is beyond anything we expected. These aliens think you're their long-lost leader." "But I'm not," Alan whispered back. "I'm just a linguist who figured out how to pronounce some ancient words." "Maybe so," Foster said, "but they believe otherwise. And from the size of those ships out there, they have the firepower to be a serious problem if they get upset." Vexthar approached Alan again. "Voice of awakening, you must come to the command throne. The fleet awaits your direction." Already, the other ships awakened throughout the galaxy. "Other ships?" Foster asked sharply. "How many other ships?" "The Vecthar Armada once numbered 10,000 vessels," Vexthar said proudly. "The greatest fleet in galactic history. All now awakening from the Great Sleep, all returning to serve the voice." The humans exchanged worried looks. 10,000 ships of this size would be more powerful than all the Galactic Confederation forces combined. Vexthar extended a crystal hand to Alan. "Come, voice, your throne awaits." Alan looked at Foster, who nodded slightly. He had no choice. He followed Vexthar through the doorway, with Lisa and the others behind him. They walked through long hallways with high ceilings. Other crystal aliens bowed as they passed. After several minutes, they entered a massive room. In the center stood a large chair made of the same dark metal as the ship. It was surrounded by floating screens showing stars, planets, and other ships. "The command throne," Vexter said with reverence. "From here, you will lead us again to our rightful place in the galaxy." Alan approached the throne slowly. "What exactly do you expect me to do?" "To fulfill the prophecy," Vexter said. "To lead the Vikthar in the reclamation. To take back what was once ours, and what was once yours." Lisa asked quietly. Vexter turned to her. "Before the Great Sleep, the Vikthar Dominion controlled 1/3 of the known galaxy. Our technology was beyond all others. Our military might was unchallenged. Until?" Admiral Foster asked. "Until the betrayal," Vexter said. "The voice will remember. He will tell you if he wishes." Alan looked at the throne with growing dread. "And if I don't want to lead your reclamation?" The crystal being seemed confused. "But you are the voice. You spoke the words. This is your purpose." A message came through to Admiral Foster's communication device. Her face grew pale as she read it. "Professor," she said quietly to Alan, "we're getting reports of more alien ships appearing near Earth colonies, all matching this design. The Galactic Confederation Council is calling an emergency session." Alan looked at the waiting throne, then at the expectant alien faces around him. What had he done by speaking those ancient words? He had awakened the most powerful military force the galaxy had ever known. And now they were waiting for his orders. "I need time," he said to Vexter, "to remember everything properly." Vexter bowed. "Of course, voice. The Great Sleep may have clouded your memories. We will wait. We have waited 8,000 years. We can wait a little longer." As they were led to guest quarters on the ship, Lisa whispered to Alan, "What are we going to do?" Alan had no answer. He had spent his life studying dead languages. Now he had awakened one, and with it, the most dangerous fleet in galactic history. Alan Miller couldn't sleep. The bed in his guest room on the Vikthar ship was comfortable enough, but his mind wouldn't rest. Through the window, he could see Earth, looking small and fragile. 24 hours had passed since their first meeting. With the crystal aliens, a soft knock came at his door. Alan opened it to find Lisa waiting outside. "Any luck with the research?" he asked. Lisa shook her head. She looked tired. "I've been going through all the data the Confederation sent us about known alien species. There's almost nothing about the Vikthar. Just old stories and legends about a powerful empire that disappeared thousands of years ago." Alan sat on the edge of his bed. "So no one knows what happened to them, or why they went into this great sleep?" "No," Lisa said. "And that worries me. A civilization doesn't just put itself to sleep for 8,000 years without a good reason." Another knock interrupted them. Admiral Foster entered with a tall man in a blue uniform with gold trim. His face was serious, his posture stiff. "Professor Miller, Miss Warren," Foster said. "This is Commander Jack Reynolds of the Galactic Confederation Peacekeeping Force. He just arrived." Commander Reynolds didn't offer to shake hands. "The Confederation Council has sent me with a message," he said. "These Vikthar ships must leave Confederation space immediately." Alan blinked in surprise. "Have you seen the size of these ships? I don't think they'll just leave because we ask them to." "That's why I'm here to speak with you," Reynolds said. "These aliens believe you're their leader. You need to order them to leave." "It's not that simple," Lisa said. "They think Professor Miller is some kind of prophesied figure. If he just tells them to go away, they might think he's an imposter." Admiral Foster nodded. "We need to handle this carefully. More Vikthar ships are appearing every hour. We've counted over 200 now, all across Confederation space." Reynolds' face hardened. The Council has authorized me to inform you that if these ships don't leave within 3 days, Earth will be expelled from the Confederation. What? Alan stood up. That's not fair. We didn't invite these aliens here. Furthermore, Reynolds continued, ignoring Alan's outburst, if the Confederation determines that these Vecthar pose a serious threat, more serious measures may be taken. Lisa stepped forward. What kind of measures? Reynolds didn't answer. Directly. Earth has been part of the Confederation for only 15 years. Many older members remember when humans were considered too primitive and violent to join. Don't give them reason to reconsider that decision. After Reynolds left, Admiral Foster sighed heavily. He didn't say it outright, but I think they're preparing to quarantine our entire solar system if necessary. Or worse. Alan paced the room. This is insane. We need more information about the Vecthar. Maybe if we understood why they went to sleep and what this voice of awakening really means, we could figure out how to resolve this. I have an idea, Lisa said. If they believe you're their leader, maybe they'll answer your questions. Ask. To see their historical records. Alan nodded. It's worth a try. An hour later, they stood in a large room filled with floating screens. Vexter operated the controls, bringing up images and text, as Alan requested. Show me what happened before. The Great Sleep, Alan said. Why did your people go into hibernation? Vexter's crystal face showed no expression, but his movements seemed hesitant. The final days are not often discussed, voice. It was a time of great shame for our people. I need to know, Alan insisted. To properly lead you now. Vexter bowed and touched several controls. The screens filled with images of planets, star systems, and massive space battles. 8,000 years ago, the Vecthar Dominion was at its height, Vexter explained. We had conquered many worlds. Our technology was unmatched. But we had grown proud and cruel. The images showed Vecthar ships destroying cities, crystal soldiers marching across alien landscapes. We believed it was our right to rule all we surveyed, Vexter continued. Then we encountered the Shining Ones. New images appeared. Beings made of pure light, with no physical form. The Shining Ones were unlike any species we had met before. They had no planets, no ships, no weapons. Yet they resisted us in ways we could not understand. The screens showed Vecthar ships failing, weapons turning against their users, entire fleets vanishing. They did not fight as we did, Vexter said. Instead, they reached into our minds and showed us the pain we had caused, the suffering, the destruction. For the first time, we felt the weight of our actions. Alan watched in silence as the history unfolded. The Vecthar Empire began to crumble, not from military defeat, but from within, as more and more of the crystal beings refused to continue their conquests. The Shining Ones gave us a choice, Vexter said. Extinction or sleep and redemption. They told us we would sleep until the voice called us again, a leader who would awaken us when the galaxy was ready for our return, a leader who would walk, guide us to a better purpose. Lisa exchanged looks with Alan and Admiral Foster. This changed everything. So this prophecy, Alan said carefully, it wasn't about returning to conquer, but about finding a new path. Vexter tilted his head. The exact words were, "You will sleep until the voice calls you to serve again. Not as conquerors, but as guardians." Guardians, Alan repeated. A new understanding began to form in his mind. Not to take over the galaxy, but to protect it. That was our understanding, Vexter said. Though many still hold to the old ways, can believe we will reclaim our empire. Admiral Foster stepped forward. Commander Reynolds needs to hear this. The Confederation thinks you're here to start a war. Many of my kind might welcome such a war, Vexter admitted. 8,000 years of sleep has not changed all hearts. That is why we need the voice's guidance. Alan felt the weight of responsibility growing heavier. Somehow, he had to convince both the Vikthar and the Confederation that this ancient fleet could be an asset rather than a threat. But time was running out. "I need to speak to all the Vikthar commanders," he said. "And to the Confederation." "Council," Vexther bowed. "As you command, voice." As they left the history room, Lisa whispered to Alan, "Do you have a plan?" Alan nodded slowly. "I think I do. These ships were meant to be guardians, not conquerors. Maybe that's exactly what the galaxy needs right now." What Alan didn't say was that he had no idea if his plan would work. He was a professor of linguistics, not a diplomat or a military leader. But somehow, he had to find a way to turn the most dangerous fleet in galactic history into a force for peace. Otherwise, Earth and everyone on it might pay the price. The command chamber of the Vekthar flagship was filled with glowing screens. Each screen showed the face of a different Vekthar commander. Alan Miller stood before them, trying to look confident. Lisa and Admiral Foster stood behind him. Vexther stood to his right. "I have called you all here because we face a critical moment," Alan said. His voice shook slightly. He was a professor, not a leader of an alien armada. "The Galactic Confederation views your return with fear. They have given us 3 days to leave their space." Angry sounds came from many of the screens. One commander spoke in the Vikthar language, his crystal face shining with blue light. Vixthar translated. "Commander Zardik says we should show the Confederation our true power, and we should take back what was once ours." More commanders called out in agreement. Alan raised his hands for quiet. "I understand your feelings," he said, "but I must remind you why you went into the Great Sleep, not to return as conquerors, but as guardians. What is there to guard?" Another commander asked in broken English. "The galaxy is weak. The Confederation has no real power. We could rule again easily." Alan took a deep breath. "Let me tell you what I've learned about the galaxy while you slept." For the next hour, Alan spoke about the history of the galaxy since the Vekthar disappeared. He told them about the wars that had come and gone, about species that had risen and fallen, about the slow, difficult birth of the Galactic Confederation. "The galaxy doesn't need new conquerors," Alan said. "It has seen too many already." "What?" "It needs our protectors. Forces that can keep the peace, stop pirates and slavers, help during disasters, and prevent new wars from starting." "And why should we be these protectors?" A female commander asked. "What do we gain?" Lisa stepped forward. "Redemption," she said simply. "A chance to be remembered not for the worlds you destroyed, but for the lives you saved." The commanders fell silent. Alan could see they were thinking about her words. "I am not your true voice of awakening," Alan admitted. "I'm just a human who learned your language." But maybe that's exactly what was meant to happen. Maybe the Shining Ones knew that someday someone would awaken you who hadn't been part of your conquests, someone who could help you find a new purpose. Before any of the commanders could respond, Admiral Foster's communication device beeped loudly. Her face went pale as she read the message. "Professor," she said urgently, "the Confederation fleet is moving. They're not waiting 3 days. They're coming now." Alan turned back to the screens. "How many ships does the Confederation have?" "About 3,000, Vexter said. "But they are spread across the galaxy. Perhaps 500 could reach us quickly." "And how many Vekthar ships are awake now?" "Nearly 1,000, Vexter answered. "More awaken each hour." Alan closed his eyes for a moment. 1,000 ancient warships against 500 modern ones. It would be a bloodbath, no matter who won. "I need to speak to the Confederation Council," Alan said. Now, 30 minutes later, Alan stood before another set of screens. This time, they showed the faces of alien representatives from the Confederation Council. Commander Reynolds stood beside them, his face hard with anger. "The Vecthar have 2 hours to begin leaving Confederation space," one counselor said. Her skin was blue, her eyes large and black. "After that, we will open fire. If you attack," Alan warned, "you will start a war you cannot win. The Vecthar fleet is more powerful than you know, and more are awakening every hour." "Are you threatening us, Professor Miller?" Commander Reynolds asked coldly. "No," Alan said. "I'm trying to prevent a disaster. Please, give me a chance to show you another way." A counselor with green scales and a long neck leaned forward. "What way is that?" "The Vecthar were meant to return as guardians, not conquerors," Alan explained. "Their technology is far beyond anything in the Confederation. They could help protect trade routes, stop pirate attacks, respond to natural disasters, and keep the peace." "You expect us to trust the most feared military force in galactic history?" another counselor asked. "The old stories tell of entire worlds destroyed by the Vecthar." "Those stories are true," Alan admitted, "but the Vecthar have changed. They were forced to see the pain they caused before they went into the Great Sleep. They were meant to awaken to a new purpose." "Words," Commander Reynolds said dismissively. "Pretty words with no proof." "Then let me offer proof," Alan said. He turned to a small screen beside him where Vexter waited. "First Commander, tell the Council about the pirate fleet that has been attacking the mining colonies in the Orion sector." Vexter's crystal face showed surprise. "How do you know of this voice?" "Admiral Foster told me," Alan said. "The Confederation has been trying to catch these pirates for months with no success." Vexter nodded. "The pirate fleet consists of 27 ships. They hide in the dust clouds of the Orion Nebula between attacks. With 5 of our vessels, we could end this threat permanently." The council members looked at each other. The pirate problem had been serious for some time. "A simple test," Alan suggested. "Let the Vecthar deal with these pirates. If they succeed, it proves they can be valuable allies. If they fail or betray your trust, you still have your fleet ready." The counselors spoke quietly among themselves. Finally, the blue-skinned counselor spoke. "We will allow this test. But we warn you, if the Vecthar ships deviate from their mission in any way, we will consider it an act of war." "Understood," Alan said, relief flooding through him. It wasn't much, but it was a start. After the council members disappeared from the screens, Lisa put her hand on Alan's shoulder. "That was brilliant," she said. "But will the Vecthar commanders agree?" "They'd better," Alan said grimly. "It's our only chance to prevent a war." He turned back to Vexter. "Call the commanders again. We have a mission to plan." As Alan watched Vexter prepare the communication links, he wondered if he was doing the right thing. He had awakened the most dangerous fleet in galactic history. Now he was trying to turn it into a force for good. Could ancient conquerors really become protectors? Or was he just delaying the inevitable conflict? Either way, he had bought them some time. The fate of Earth, the Vecthar, and perhaps the entire Confederation now depended on how well a group of crystal warriors could hunt down some pirates. 1 year later, Alan Miller stood at the large window of his new office. But this was not his small university office back on Earth. This room was on the Vecthar flagship, now called Guardian 1. Through the window, he could see the blue-green planet below, New Haven, a colony world that had recently suffered a terrible earthquake. On the planet's surface, he could see the shapes of Vecthar ships delivering supplies and medical equipment. Crystal beings worked alongside humans and other aliens, building new homes and hospitals. "Professor?" Lisa Warren entered the room, carrying a data pad. Her title was now Cultural Liaison, though Alan knew she was much more than that. She had become essential to the new relationship between the Victhar and the rest of the galaxy. The reports from New Haven look good, she said. The Victhar medical technology has saved over 10,000 lives so far. Alan nodded, feeling a mix of pride and relief. And what about the situation in the Proxima sector? Lisa's face grew more serious. 3 more slave ships captured. All slaves freed and returned to their home worlds. The slave traders are being taken to Confederation authorities. Good, Alan said. Any problems? No. Commander Zartik followed your orders exactly. No excessive force. No old ways. Alan understood what she meant. In the beginning, some Vecthar commanders had wanted to deal with pirates and slave traders, as they would have 8,000 years ago with complete destruction. It had taken time to teach them restraint, to show them that protection didn't require annihilation. The door opened again. Vexther entered, his crystal body catching the light from the stars outside. In the past year, Alan had learned to read the subtle changes in the Vecthar's appearance. Right now, Vexther seemed pleased. Voice, he said with a small bow. He still used the title, despite Alan's many attempts to stop him. The Confederation Council is ready for your report. Alan sighed. These monthly reports to the Council were necessary, but tiring. Many Council members still didn't fully trust the Vecthar. A large screen appeared on one wall of the office. 20 faces looked back at Alan, the representatives of the most powerful worlds in the Galactic Confederation. Commander Reynolds was there too, though his title was now Ambassador Reynolds. His face was less hard than it had been a year ago. Professor Miller, said the blue-skinned counselor, who had become one of their strongest supporters. We are eager to hear your monthly report on Vecthar activities. For the next 30 minutes, Alan detailed everything the Vecthar fleet had done in the past month. Pirates captured, disasters responded to, disputes settled. With each report, he could see more council members nodding in approval. And what? Of the deep space exploration? Asked a counselor with 4 eyes and silver skin. 5 Vecthar ships have reached the edge of the Andromeda Galaxy, Alan reported. They've established the first communication relays. Soon we'll have real-time data from a neighboring galaxy for the first time. This had been one of Alan's best ideas. The Vecthar ships could travel faster than any Confederation vessel. They were perfect for exploration, and it gave the more adventure-seeking commanders a positive outlet for their energy. Very good, said the head counselor. And the technology? Exchange program? Proceeding carefully, as agreed, Alan said. The Vecthar medical technology has been shared with all Confederation worlds. The faster-than-light drive improvements will be next, once we're sure they can be safely integrated with current systems. After the meeting ended, Lisa looked at Alan with a smile. They didn't ask a single question about security concerns. That's the first time. Trust comes slowly, Alan said. But it is coming. Vexther moved to stand beside them at the window. When I first awoke from the great sleep, I expected to lead our people in conquest again. I did not understand the true meaning of the prophecy. And now? Alan asked. Now I see what the Shining Ones intended, Vexther said. We were warriors without purpose. Now we are guardians with the greatest purpose of all, to protect rather than destroy. Alan nodded. It hadn't been easy. There had been difficult moments. In the past year, some Vecthar had refused to accept the new path and had tried to break away to form their own conquering fleet. They had been stopped by their own kind, Vecthar, who had embraced their role as guardians. We have a new message. From Earth, Lisa said, checking her datapad. The University of Colorado wants to know when you'll return to teach again. Alan smiled. Tell them I'm teaching more important lessons out here. A soft alarm sounded. Vexter touched a control on his arm. A distress call from the Pleiades sector. A passenger ship is under attack by unknown forces. How many Vecthar? Ships are in that area? Alan asked. 3, Vexter replied. I can have them there in 20 minutes. Do it, Alan said. Standard protocol. Protect the civilians first, capture the attackers if possible, use minimal force. As Vexter left. To give the orders, Lisa looked at Alan with wonder. Sometimes I still can't believe this is real. A year ago, you were just a professor studying dead languages. Now you're commanding the most powerful fleet in the galaxy. Alan shook his head. I don't command them. I guide them. There's a difference. Still, Lisa said, when you spoke those words in your office that day, did you ever imagine where they would lead? Alan looked out at the stars. No, but I'm glad they led here. On the planet below, more Vecthar ships were landing with supplies. In distant parts of the galaxy, Vecthar vessels were chasing pirates, exploring unknown regions, and helping colonies in need. The most dangerous fleet in galactic history had become its greatest force for good, all because a linguistics professor had spoken a forgotten alien language. Later that day, Alan sat alone in his quarters, looking at the small gray disk that had started everything. It no longer glowed or responded to his voice. Its purpose had been fulfilled. He thought about the strange path his life had taken, from a quiet office surrounded by books to the command center of an alien flagship, from studying dead languages to bringing new life to an ancient species. His communication device beeped. Another situation somewhere in the vast galaxy. Another chance for the Vecthar to prove they had truly changed. Alan smiled as he stood up. He had awakened the most dangerous fleet in galactic history, and in doing so, he had given both the Vecthar and the galaxy something they desperately needed, a second chance. Voice to command center, he said into his device. I'm on my way. The journey wasn't over. In many ways, it was just beginning. But as Alan left his quarters, he knew they were on the right path, a path not of conquest, but of protection, not of destruction, but of building, not of fear, but of hope. And that made all the difference.